Hello, geometry students, and welcome to a lesson on the segment addition postulate and the midpoint theorem. Okay, let's for now ignore the words postulate and theorem, just think about segment addition and midpoint. This is week 2, so this is lesson 2. This is the third day, so this is lesson 2-3, and this is our in-class lesson, so it's 2-3A. Okay, so let's first these notes, by the way, these are the notes, and they go with the homework that is called homework 2, segment addition postulate. So this is for homework. This is just the name on the top of the paper. Homework 2, segment addition postulate. It will also help you for an in-class, short in-class activity that you're going to do in a few minutes. All right, so first, the distance between 2 points. So here's 2 points, A and B, on the number line. And the distance between the points is written as, you can say the words, the length of the segment called AB. Oops. Segment AB, we're just going to put AB. This is how we notate a segment. Or the shorthand for this, and this is kind of confusing for some people, but if you just say AB, that means the length of segment AB. So this little notation here means these words right here. It's much easier to just say the length of AB that way. Okay? In this case, AB, the length of the segment AB goes from 1 to 3, and that's a length of 4. Okay? Congruent segments. So if two lengths are the same, so if the length of AB, the length of segment AB, is equal to the length of segment CD, then the segments are congruent, which means that the segment AB is congruent to segment CD. All right, so if two segments, what this basically says, it sounds like it's saying the same thing, I get that. But you'll understand as we move along and we have other shapes that are much more complicated than segments, and we say that they're congruent, it kind of makes a little bit more sense. But what this is saying is that if two segments are the same exact shape and they're congruent, then that means they have the same length. And it works both ways. If two segments have the same length, that means they're the same exact shape. They're congruent. You can lay one on top of the other. Okay? That's simple. All right, the segment addition postulate says basically if you look at this diagram here, if you look at the diagram, and you've got a segment, so you've got segment AC, and you have a point in between the two endpoints of the segment, like point B, then the segment here, this little segment here, plus this bigger segment here, adds up to the whole thing. I hope the diagram helps, I'm not sure, but what it basically says is the length of AB. So the length of AB plus the length of BC is equal to the total length of AC. Okay? Remember, when I read this, when I wrote this down, I said it the same way as I'm saying it right here. Every time I write AB, I say the length of AB. So it's probably a good time for you guys to start some self-talk. And when you're reading something, don't just read AB plus BC. Read the length of AB plus the length of BC is equal to the length of AC. It's going to make things easier in the long run because you'll understand you're developing language. You're developing a language right now of geometry. Okay, so let's look at an example. So use the diagram for questions 1 and 2. So let's look at question 1 first, and I'm going to label question 1 on top in red. Okay, so I'm just going to label what I see, and what I want you to do is try to get used to labeling diagrams. Okay, so PQ is 9. So I'm going to put a 9 for that segment PQ. QR is 28. So I'm going to put 28 for that segment right there. I'm looking for the length of PR, so I'm looking for the entire length of the segment. I didn't mean to cross out the 28, but it's just going to be, according to the segment addition postulate, the sum of the two smaller parts equals a larger part. So it's just going to be 9 plus 28, or 37 units. We don't have to say units, you can just say 37. All right, if QR is 17, now I'm going to do this one in green. Okay, so if QR is 17, and PR is 21. Now this one's a little bit different because it's PR. That's the whole thing here. We have to be careful. We aren't always just going to add the two numbers together. In this case, we're looking for PQ, so we have to subtract 17 from 21 to get that. So in this case, it's subtraction 21 minus 17, which is 4. So it really helps if you draw it out, if you label the diagram, so you can see whether you're adding or subtracting. Okay, let's look at an example with variables. Okay, a little bit of algebra here. So if EG is 71, so EG, the whole thing here, is 71. Let's find the value of x. So we're going to go 8x minus 17, that's this one, plus 5x minus 3, that's this one, equals the whole thing, which we just said is 71. Okay, got to solve the algebra. 8x plus 5x is 13x. Negative 17 minus 3 is minus 20, and that equals 71. Add 20 to both sides. And by the way, I was happy with your results on your algebra test. You guys are good with your algebra, so this should be trivial for you, most of you. 13x equals 91. Divide 91 by 13, and we get 7. So that's it, x equals 7. We were only looking for x there. In this example, we're going to find x, but then we also have to find the length of segment TU. So we're going to take it one step further. Let's start out by setting it up. Let's see what TV is, because we're told that TV is 14x minus 8. We have to put that in the whole thing. So here's our whole equation. In fact, I'm going to ask you to pause the video, and I'm going to write it out, and then I'll explain it. I'll go over it with you. To clarify before I do this, when I say pause the video, I mean pause the video, make an effort to work it out yourself. First find x. Once you find x, find TU. And then we'll compare notes when you're done and when I'm done. Okay, so pause the video and work it out. Okay, so there you go. 29. How'd you guys do? All right, first thing, if you got 29 wrong, check to see if you got the x correct. Okay, if you didn't get x equals 3, then check your equation, because your algebra is probably pretty solid. You could have made an algebraic mistake, but I would check the equation. Okay, so the whole thing, we're told here, TV, which is from t to v all the way the whole thing, that's 14x minus 8. And the two parts have to add up to 14x minus 8. So the whole thing is equal to the sum of the part on the left, 9x plus 2, plus the part on the right, which is just 5. That's your equation. Solve the equation, you get x equals 3, and then the length of segment TU is 29. Okay, why don't we try these two examples? I'm going to again have you pause the video. We'll do a number 5. We'll come back, check that. If that works out well, we'll try number 6. Okay, let's pause the video and try number 5. Okay, so these are all they're very similar to each other. So once you've gotten one right, you get the idea. So let's see how this one went. Hopefully more of you are on board now. So the whole thing, we're told right here, JL, which is from one endpoint to the other, from J to L, the whole thing, 5x plus 2. So the 5x plus 2 is equal to the left side plus the right side, and that's what I have here and here. Okay, and once you get that set up, combine like terms, get all the variables on one side. First combine like terms, get all the variables on one side, solve for x. Once you have x, don't stop there, because we're looking for JL. We're not just looking for x. But guess what? You're always going to have to find x first, just about always. Okay, so just plan on that. Find x first. All right, once we get that, plug it in to the 3x minus 1. So, plug it into the whole thing, 5x plus 2. So 5 times 12 plus 2, and that's 62. All right, let's do it one more time. Let's try number 6. Pause the video. This time I'm just going to show you the answer and let you make a decision of if you have any questions. Okay, hopefully you guys got x equals 5. All right, let's try an example. It's pretty much the same thing, just got a few more questions involved, and the numbers are slightly bigger. So this time also, nothing is labeled on the diagram. So if you just looked at it the way it is now, you're going to have to really kind of store more things in your head, which some of you may be able to do, but I would like you to still write it down so we can kind of compare notes. And if you get something wrong, then you can look and see where you went wrong. If you just do it all in your head, you're going to have a hard time doing that. Okay, so write it all down, label the diagram with all three parts, write your equation, solve your equation, and then answer all three questions on the right. Okay, I'm going to pause the video. Let's go for it. Okay, so here we have it. We have all our answers here. I just want to talk about this a little bit. So we have labeled the 13x minus 5 and the 2x plus 9. We labeled the 36 minus x. We wrote our equation. The whole thing is equal to the sum of the parts. Okay, the whole parts here. And then solved it, and we got x equals 2. Now, once we found that x equals 2, we found that sk, this whole thing right here, is 21. We found that ky, this part over here, is 13. Now, I'm just making the point here that if you want to find the length of sy, there's two ways to do it. And this is one of the beautiful things about geometry. You can double check your work. Okay, so in one way, you can just plug in x, which we know is 2 right here, which we did right here, and we got 34. But the other way is to say, well, if these two parts are 21 and 13, doesn't that mean that we can just add them up to get sy? And you can. And both of your numbers had better be the same. So when you add 21 and 13, you get 34, which checks out. Okay, so it should every time match up. So this happens very often in geometry, where you can actually do the problem in two ways that are really simple. Like one of them is really simple, it's like adding, and just to maybe check your work. Okay, what's next here? We have 4 minutes, so I think we can do this in 4 minutes. So the midpoint of a segment, trying to keep these all under 15 minutes. The midpoint of a segment means that you've got two equal parts. So the midpoint divides a segment into two equal segments. So two equal or congruent segments. A line or ray, like this line right here, that intersects a segment at its midpoint is said to bisect. So bisect is a very important term. It's going to come up a lot. It means cut in half. It's really important. It doesn't just mean cut it somewhere. It means cut it right in the middle. So the segment that does the bisecting, or the line that does the bisecting in this case, is called the segment bisector. It's the segment that's being bisected. So the thing that cuts it is a segment bisector. It cuts it in half. All right, in the diagram to the right, B is the midpoint. This is the midpoint right in the middle of the segment AC, midpoint of segment AC, and line L, this is L right here, is a segment bisector. Of AC, segment AC. Okay? So when you have a segment bisector, so if Q is the midpoint, that means that these two are equal. So this is an easier equation. You just have to set them equal. So your equation here is 7x minus 16 is 4x plus 2. Solve that out, see what x is. Okay, x equals 6. Here we go, try this one, try number 9. H is the midpoint of GI. Let's find the length of GH. So we're going to take it one step past x. Okay, pause it and try it. Okay, so we set them both equal. We found that x equals 3. Come over here, since we're looking for GH from here to here. I plugged 3 in for the 5, and I got 17. Okay, let's try number 10. Same thing. Pause the video. Okay, so ignore the question for a minute. Always start out by finding x. Once you find x, notice we're looking for QS, which is the whole thing. Notice that we can just solve each one of them. They're both 38. By the way, there's another check of your work. They're the same. They're supposed to be the same because it's the midpoint. 76 is the answer. Let's try the last one. Okay, if you follow the answers, you're going to get y equals 8. follow the checkpoints. First x equals 5. Each part is 23. Whole thing is 46.